"Mom, why does he look like Daddy's brother?" But when she starts to speak, Jessica felt her heart race as she pulled Ethan by the hand, trying to make him walk faster through the busy sidewalks of downtown Chicago. She was already late for an important meeting with investors, and the boy seemed to be deliberately slow that morning. That's when Ethan suddenly stopped, planting his feet on the ground with a force that almost made Jessica stumble. "Mom, look at that man over there," said the boy, pointing to a figure covered by dirty blankets on an old mattress on the sidewalk. "Ethan, let's go. We can't be late," Jessica replied, trying to pull him again. But the boy didn't move, his 8-year-old eyes fixed on the partially visible face of the man sleeping there. "Mom, why does he look like Daddy's brother?" Jessica's blood ran cold. She looked where her son was pointing and felt the world spinning around her. There, sleeping among plastic bags and cardboard, was Michael, her brother-in-law, the man who had disappeared 5 years ago, leaving her husband David devastated and full of guilt. "That's nonsense, Ethan. Let's go," she said, but her voice came out shaky. The boy, with that typical persistence of children, let go of his mother's hand and took a few steps toward the man. "Uncle Michael?" he called, making Jessica almost faint. The man moved under the blankets. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the morning sunlight. When his gaze met Jessica's, both were paralyzed. The recognition was instant and painful. Michael had the same face as David, but marked by time and hardship. The unshaven beard, the sunken eyes, the worn clothes told a story that Jessica never imagined she would witness. "Jessica?" he said, straightening up on the mattress. Ethan ran back to his mother, confused. "Mom, it really is Uncle Michael. Why is he sleeping on the street? Where's his house?" Jessica felt several people around them stopping to watch the scene. An elderly lady walking with a shopping bag stopped and whispered something to her friend. 2 men in suits passing by slowed their pace, clearly curious. "Ethan, come here," Jessica said, trying to get her son away from there as quickly as possible. But Michael had already gotten up completely. Even dressed in shabby clothes and with unkempt hair, he maintained the upright posture that Jessica remembered from the times when he used to visit her and David's home. "Hi, Ethan," Michael said softly. "You've grown so much." "Uncle Michael, why don't you come over to our house anymore? Daddy always gets sad when he talks about you," the boy said with that brutal honesty of children. Jessica saw tears forming in Michael's eyes. She looked around again and noticed that now there were more people watching. A younger woman had stopped with her baby stroller, and a group of teenagers was whispering and pointing in their direction. "We need to get out of here," Jessica said, more to herself than to anyone else. "Jessica, Michael began. "Not here, not now," she interrupted him, picking up Ethan, even though she knew the boy was already too big for that. "Mom, why are you angry?" Ethan asked, noticing the tension on his mother's face. "I'm not angry, sweetheart. We're just late," she lied. Michael took a step toward them. "I just wanted to say that you're doing well. That's all I needed to know." Jessica stopped. There was something in his voice, a resignation mixed with relief, that made her turn back. "How long have you been here?" "A few months. In this specific spot, about 2 weeks, Michael replied, shrugging as if he were talking about the weather. Ethan squirmed in his mother's arms, clearly wanting to get down. "Mom, can Uncle Michael go have breakfast with us? He looks hungry." The boy's innocent question echoed on the sidewalk. Jessica looked at Michael and saw how he lowered his eyes, ashamed. "Ethan, that's not how it works," she said softly. "But why not?" the boy insisted. "When Grandma Margaret got sick, she came to live with us. Uncle Michael needs help too." Jessica felt a lump in her throat. The simplicity of a child's logic always managed to expose the unnecessary complications adults created. "It's different, son," she said, but she didn't even fully believe those words herself. Michael cleared his throat. "Ethan, I chose to be here. Sometimes adults make choices that children don't understand." "But they're dumb choices," the boy replied, making Michael smile for the first time since Jessica had seen him. "Maybe they are," he admitted. Jessica looked at her watch. She had already completely missed her morning meeting. Her phone was vibrating insistently in her pocket, probably her assistant trying to figure out where she was. "Dear listener, If you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Michael, I need to take Ethan to school and I have work. But... She hesitated, not quite knowing what to say. You don't need to explain anything, Jessica. I understand, he said, starting to crouch back down on the mattress. No, Ethan said forcefully, struggling in his mother's lap until he managed to get down. Uncle Michael, do you remember you taught me how to make paper airplanes? And you promised you'd teach me how to play chess? Michael stopped mid-movement, clearly touched by the memory. You remember that? Of course I remember. I was 4, but I'm not stupid, Ethan said, crossing his arms in a way that looked exactly like his father. Jessica felt her heart tighten. She remembered that day. Michael had spent hours playing with Ethan, teaching him how to fold paper and promising all those things he never got to fulfill because he simply disappeared from their lives. Ethan, let's go, she said, but her voice came out without conviction. Mom, it's not fair. Uncle Michael is our family, the boy insisted. Ethan, it's complicated, Jessica began, but Michael interrupted her. No, Jessica, he's right. And I should have explained things a long time ago. Explain what? She asked, though she feared the answer. Michael looked around, noticing that people were still watching. He picked up an old backpack that was next to the mattress and put it on his back. There's a coffee shop on the corner. Can we talk there? I'll buy Ethan a snack. I still have some money. Jessica looked at her son, whose eyes were full of hope, and then at Michael. There was something in him that she couldn't identify. It wasn't despair nor shame. It was almost like relief. All right, but just 15 minutes, she said. The small coffee shop was on a busy corner, but it had a few tables in the back that offered more privacy. Michael ordered just a black coffee, while Jessica ordered a cappuccino and a hot chocolate with a grilled cheese sandwich for Ethan. Uncle Michael, do you really live on the street? Ethan asked as soon as they sat down. Ethan! Jessica scolded him. No, it's all right, Michael said. Yes, Ethan. I've been living on the street for a while. But why? Don't you like houses? Michael smiled sadly. I like houses, but sometimes things don't turn out the way we plan in life. What happened? Jessica asked, unable to contain her curiosity any longer. Michael stirred his coffee with the little spoon, clearly choosing his words. Do you remember my business partner, Jason, from the consulting firm? Jessica nodded. She vaguely remembered a well-dressed man who sometimes appeared at family gatherings. Let's just say he wasn't the person I thought he was. When I found out, it was already too late. He had transferred everything. Bank accounts, investments, even my apartment was in the company's name, which he controlled. But that's theft, Jessica exclaimed. Yes, but it was legal theft. Signed papers, contracts I didn't read carefully. Lawyers he hired who worked for him, not for us, Michael explained, his voice heavy with bitterness. Ethan was listening to everything carefully, even though Jessica doubted he fully understood. But why didn't you go to David? He would have helped, she said. Michael stopped stirring his coffee and looked directly at her. Because of our last conversation, do you remember? When I asked to borrow money to invest in the company's expansion, Jessica remembered. David had lent a considerable amount to Michael, and there had been an argument when Michael was late paying it back. David was angry because you were late paying, she said. No, David was angry because I was late telling the truth, Michael corrected. The money had already been stolen when I asked for the loan. I was desperate, trying to find a way to cover the hole before anyone found out. Jessica felt a chill in her stomach. You mean that I used my brother's money to try and cover up a theft? When I finally told him the truth, when I admitted I had lost everything and might not be able to pay him back, well, you saw how he reacted. Jessica remembered. David had been furious, not so much about the money, but about the lie. He always talked about how honesty was the foundation of any relationship, and finding out his brother had lied to him was devastating. He said he couldn't trust me anymore, Michael continued, and he was right. I lied. I was a coward. So when I lost everything for good, when Jason disappeared with what was left, and I was literally left with nothing, how could I go to David? How could I show up at his house and say, "Hi, remember me? The lying brother who used your money, I need help again." Ethan had stopped eating his bread and was staring intently at Michael. "Uncle Michael, you're crying," the boy said softly. Michael quickly wiped his hand across his face. "A little, but it's okay. Sometimes adults cry when they remember sad things." "Daddy cries sometimes too," Ethan said. "Mostly when he looks at his old pictures with you." The silence that followed was heavy. Jessica saw Michael close his eyes for a moment, as if trying to control his emotion. "He keeps pictures?" Michael asked quietly. "Lots. There's one from the day you went fishing when you were little, and one from when you taught him to ride a bike," Ethan continued, oblivious to the impact of his words. Jessica felt tears sting her own eyes. She knew David missed his brother, but she never imagined he kept pictures and cried over them. "Ethan, maybe we shouldn't talk about this," she said gently. "But why not, Mum? Uncle Michael is family. Family talks about these things," the boy replied with relentless logic. Michael smiled through his tears. "You're just like your father when he was little, always asking the hard questions and expecting honest answers." "Daddy says lying is for weak people," Ethan said. "Your father is right. And I was weak, Ethan. I lied when I should have told the truth from the beginning." Jessica looked at her watch again. She had already lost the whole morning, and she knew she had a lot of work to catch up on, but she couldn't bring herself to get up from that table. "Michael, how long have you been in Chicago?" she asked. "I never left. I've been in the city all these 5 years." "And you? You knew where we lived?" Michael lowered his eyes. Yes. I passed by your house a few times, just to make sure you were all right." Jessica felt a shiver. "So you were watching us?" "Not in a weird way," Michael hurried to explain. "Just sometimes I'd walk down the street. I'd see you leaving for school for work. I saw Ethan learning to ride his bike in the park. I saw when you came back from your beach trip last year, all tanned and happy." "That's kind of weird, Uncle Michael," Ethan said. "It is weird," Michael admitted. "But I needed to know you were okay, that I hadn't destroyed the whole family with my bad choices." Jessica felt a mix of compassion and discomfort. The idea that Michael had been watching them without their knowledge was disturbing, but she also understood the pain behind that behavior. "Why did you never try to talk?" she asked. "To David, how could I do that?" Michael asked in return. "Hi, brother, it's me, the guy who lied to you, lost everything, and is now living on the streets. How about we have lunch together?" "But Daddy would be happy," Ethan insisted. "You think so?" "I'm sure. He always says he misses his brother, and that family is forever even when people do wrong things." Michael looked at Jessica as if seeking confirmation. "It's true," she admitted. "David talks about you more than you'd think, especially when he's sad or feeling nostalgic." "What does he say?" Jessica hesitated. Would it be right to tell him? "He says he taught you how to swim, that you two used to build pillow forts when you were kids, that you were the first person who believed he could get into engineering school." Michael covered his face with his hands. "I remember all of that. And he says the worst thing that ever happened to him wasn't you lying. It was you disappearing," Jessica continued. "Mum, why didn't you tell Daddy you found Uncle Michael?" Ethan asked suddenly. The question hit Jessica like a punch. Why hadn't she told him? Why was her first reaction to hide that meeting? It's complicated, Ethan." "But it's not, Mom. You call Daddy and say, 'Hi, David. I found Michael. He's living on the street, but he's okay.' That's it." The simplicity of the solution proposed by an 8-year-old made both Jessica and Michael laugh, even through the tears. "If only it were that simple," Michael murmured. "But it is simple," Ethan insisted. "You adults are the ones who complicate everything. Just like when you fight about what channel to watch on TV, you just each watch for an hour." Jessica looked at Michael and saw he was truly smiling for the first time since she'd found him. "Ethan, do you want to be a psychologist when you grow up?" Michael asked. "I don't know what that is." "It's a person who helps other adults stop complicating simple things." Jessica's phone rang. It was David. "Hi, honey," she answered, trying to keep her voice normal. Jessica, where are you? Your secretary said you didn't show up for the morning meeting. Is everything all right? Jessica looked at Michael, who was clearly listening to the conversation. Ethan was fiddling with her phone, probably playing some game. Ethan got a little sick at school. I'm taking care of him, she lied. Sick? What's wrong? Should I leave work? No, just a stomachache. He's feeling better already. Oh, good. But you should have called me. I would have picked him up, David said. You have an important meeting today. I know. I already rescheduled it. Okay. Kiss. Take good care of our boy. Kiss. Jessica hung up and saw that both Michael and Ethan were looking at her. You lied to Daddy, Ethan said. I protected him from information that could have upset him, she tried to explain. That's a lie with pretty words, the boy replied. Michael chuckled softly. Your son is very clever, Jessica. Too clever for his own good sometimes, she grumbled. So what do we do now? Michael asked. Jessica looked around the cafe. They'd been there almost an hour, and she still didn't know the right answer for this situation. I don't know, she admitted. Can I make a suggestion? Ethan asked. Go ahead. Uncle Michael can shower at our house and put on some of Dad's clean clothes. Then when Dad gets home from work, he'll be surprised and happy. Ethan, it's not that simple, Jessica began. Why not? Because it could be a huge shock for your father. He needs to be prepared. Prepared to be happy? Jessica looked at Michael for help, but he was clearly enjoying the conversation. Ethan has an interesting logic, he said. You two are ganging up on me, Jessica complained, but she was smiling. We're not ganging up on you, Mom. We're on Team Family, Ethan corrected. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out as we're just getting started. Now back to the story. Jessica let out a deep sigh. She knew she needed to make a decision, but all the options seemed risky. Michael, do you have a place to stay tonight? She asked. I've got my mattress on the sidewalk, he replied with a somewhat ironic tone. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have, Jessica. Ethan was watching the adults' conversation intently, clearly trying to understand the nuances that were beyond his grasp. Uncle Michael, don't you like our family anymore? He asked suddenly. Of course I do, Ethan. I love you all more than anything. Then why don't you want to come home? Michael looked at Jessica before answering. Sometimes when we do wrong things, people get mad at us, and when they get mad, it's hard to become friends again. But Dad isn't mad anymore, he's sad, Ethan said. Sadness is different from anger. Jessica felt her heart clench. Ethan was right. David wasn't angry with Michael anymore. He was hurt. He missed him, but there was no anger left. Ethan, how do you know your father isn't angry anymore? She asked. Because when he gets mad, he stomps his foot and talks loud. When he talks about Uncle Michael, he gets quiet and looks out the window, the boy explained. Michael closed his eyes for a moment. He looks out the window? Uh-huh, mostly at night when it's raining. He stands at the living room window looking at the street and sighing, Ethan told him. Sighing? Like when he watches a sad movie, or when he remembers Grandma who died. Jessica realized that Ethan had, without knowing it, just given Michael a very important piece of information. David didn't sigh with anger. He sighed with longing. Uncle Michael, you're crying again, Ethan observed. Just a little, but it's because I'm happy to know your father thinks of me, Michael explained. So are you coming home? I don't know if it's that simple, Ethan. Jessica made an impulsive decision. Michael, you're going to shower at our house today. You're going to eat a hot meal and sleep in a bed, she said. Jessica, I can't accept this. What about David? We'll figure it out. Together, she replied, surprised at her own determination. Yay! Ethan shouted, making other people in the cafe look in their direction. Ethan, quiet, Jessica whispered. Sorry, Mom, but I'm so happy, he said, still grinning from ear to ear. Michael was clearly touched, but also hesitant. Jessica, are you sure? This could complicate things between you and David. Maybe. But lying to him could complicate things too. And besides, Ethan is right. We're a family. Families solve problems together, not by keeping secrets from each other. That's right, Ethan agreed enthusiastically. Jessica picked up the phone and sent a message to her secretary, cancelling all the day's appointments. Then she looked at Michael. All set. Today is family day. The walk home was strange. Michael was clearly nervous, looking around as if he were doing something wrong. Jessica was also anxious, but tried not to show it in front of Ethan, who was beaming. "Uncle Michael, are you going to sleep in my room?" the boy asked. "No, Ethan. I'll sleep on the couch if your mother allows it," Michael replied. "Of course you can sleep on the couch." "Or in the guest room," Jessica said. "We still have the guest room." When they reached the building, Michael hesitated at the entrance. "Jessica, I'm not sure this is a good idea." "It's too late to back out now," she replied, taking out her key. "Ethan has already told the doorman that his uncle was visiting." Indeed, Ethan had greeted the doorman enthusiastically and announced that Uncle Michael was back. The doorman, Mr. Thompson, had greeted Michael politely, though Jessica noticed he took note of the worn clothes and the smell of the streets. In the elevator, Ethan wouldn't stop talking. "Uncle Michael, you'll see how my room has changed. Now I have a new bed and a bunch of books, and Mum let me put some drawings on the wall." "That's great, Ethan," Michael replied, but Jessica could see he was growing more and more tense. When they opened the apartment door, Michael stopped in the hallway. "Wow, everything is the same," he said softly. Jessica looked around, trying to see the home through his eyes. Indeed, not much had changed in the last 5 years. The same decor, the same paintings, even the couch was the same. "We like things the way they are," she explained. Michael walked slowly through the living room, looking at every detail. He stopped in front of the shelf with the family photos. "You still have pictures of me?" he murmured. "Of course we do," Ethan said. "Look, this one is from the day you taught me how to build a sandcastle at the beach." Michael picked up the photo with trembling hands. It was a picture from 3 years ago of him and Ethan building an elaborate sand fortress, while David and Jessica talked in the background. "I remember that day," he said. "It was right before everything went wrong." "You looked happy in that photo," Jessica observed. "I was happy. You are the best part of my life." Ethan tugged on Michael's hand. "Come on, Uncle Michael. I'll show you my room, and then you can take a shower and put on clean clothes." While Ethan dragged Michael through the house, Jessica sat on the couch and tried to process what was happening. In just a few hours, her life had been turned upside down. She had lost a whole day of work, brought a homeless man into her home, and now would have to explain all of this to David. She picked up her phone and sent him a message. "I need to talk to you when you get home today. It's important." The reply came quickly. "Is everything all right? You're worrying me." "Everything is fine. I just need to talk to you." "Okay, I'll be home at 6. Jessica looked at the clock. It was 2 in the afternoon. She had 4 hours to prepare Michael and herself for the most difficult conversation they would probably have in years. She heard the shower water turn on and realized Michael had agreed to take a bath. It was a first step. Ethan came running back into the living room. "Mom, Uncle Michael is crying in the bathroom," he said. "How do you know?" "Because I heard him. He's trying to cry quietly, but I heard him." Jessica sighed. She had imagined this would be hard for Michael. Coming back to that house, seeing the photos, feeling again what he had lost. "Ethan, when people are away from home for a long time, they sometimes get emotional when they come back," she explained. "So are they tears of happiness? I think they're tears of many things mixed together. Can I draw a picture to make Uncle Michael feel better?" "You can. I think he'd like that very much." While Ethan fetched paper and colored pencils, Jessica went to her husband's closet to pick out clothes for Michael. They were practically the same size, so it wouldn't be a problem. She picked out a pair of jeans, a blue t-shirt that she knew looked good on David, and a sweatshirt in case it got cold. She also grabbed clean underwear and socks. When she knocked on the bathroom door, the water had already stopped. "Michael, I brought clothes for you." "Thank you, Jessica. You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did. We're family." There was a silence on the other side of the door. "Jessica?" "Yes?" "Thank you for everything. I know this isn't easy for you." "It's not easy for anyone, Michael, but it's the right thing to do." When Michael came out of the bathroom, Jessica almost didn't recognize him. Clean, shaven, and wearing David's clothes, he started to look like the brother-in-law she knew again. The resemblance to her husband was striking. "Wow," Ethan exclaimed when he saw his uncle. "Now you look like Daddy again." Michael smiled, but Jessica saw he was still emotional. "Much better," she said. "Are you hungry? I can make some lunch. I don't want to be any trouble." "Michael, stop that. You're my brother-in-law. Of course I'm going to make food for you." While Jessica prepared lunch, Ethan showed his drawings to Michael. She watched them from the kitchen and saw how Michael paid full attention to every scribble and story the boy told. "This one is you, me, and Daddy fishing," Ethan explained. "I drew it when you guys fought to remember when we were happy." Jessica saw Michael freeze completely. "You drew this when we fought?" "Uh-huh. Because I knew you'd come back one day. Families always end up back together." "Ethan, where did you get that certainty from?" "From Grandma Margaret. Before she died, she said family is like a magnet. Even when it separates, it always ends up sticking together again." Michael looked toward the kitchen, meeting Jessica's eyes. They both knew that Margaret, David's mother, had been very close to Michael before he disappeared. "Grandma Margaret talked about you a lot," Jessica said from the kitchen. "Even after you disappeared. What did she say? That you'd come back when you were ready, that sometimes people need to get lost to find themselves." Michael lowered his head. "She was always very wise. And she told Daddy to never give up on you," Ethan added. "That's why he still keeps your pictures." Lunch was a strange experience for everyone. There were moments of normality, like when Ethan talked about school or when Michael asked about Jessica's work. But there were also silences heavy with emotion and unasked questions. "Michael, what have you been doing all these years? Besides your current situation?" Jessica asked delicately. "I worked on a few things. Odd jobs, temporary work. I tried to rebuild, but It's hard when you don't have a fixed address, organized documents, references. Do you have your documents?" "Some, the basics. They're in a folder I always carry with me." "That's important. It means you can go back to working normally." Michael gave a bitter laugh. "Jessica, have you ever tried to get a job when you live on the street? When the only clothes you have are the ones you're wearing? When you don't have a landline or an address?" Jessica realized she hadn't thought about those practical difficulties. It must be very hard. It's impossible. That's why a lot of people who fall into homelessness can't get out. It's not just about having a place to sleep. It's a whole system that excludes those on the outside. Ethan was listening to everything intently. "Uncle Michael, now you can use our address and our phone to get a job," he said simply. Once again, a child's crystal-clear logic cut through all the complications the adults had created. "If it were only that," Michael murmured. "But it is," Ethan insisted, "and you can wear Dad's clothes until you buy new ones with money from your new job." Jessica saw Michael was fighting back tears again. "Ethan, you make everything seem so simple." "Because it is simple, Uncle Michael. You adults are the ones who complicate things." After lunch, while Ethan watched cartoons on TV, Jessica and Michael sat on the porch. "Jessica, I need you to know something," Michael said. "What?" "I saw you all more times than I admitted, not just passing by on the street. I was at the hospital when Ethan was born." Jessica turned to him, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I was in the hallway. I saw David running around like a madman, happy as could be. I saw when you came out with the baby. I was hiding, but I was there. Why didn't you talk to him that day?" "Because it was the happiest day of his life. How could I ruin that by showing up and reminding him of all our fights?" Jessica tried to process this information. "Michael, are there other things you haven't told?" "Many. I was at your wedding too, outside the church. I saw when you came out under the shower of rice. I saw how happy David was." "You were at our wedding?" Jessica nearly shouted. "Just for a few minutes. I couldn't go in, but I needed to see. He was my brother. I needed to see him happy." "Why didn't you come in?" "Because we had fought 2 days before, do you remember? David said he didn't want to see me in the church if I didn't apologize for what happened with the money." Jessica vaguely remembered a tension between the brothers in the days before the wedding, but she didn't know the details. "And you didn't apologize?" "My pride wouldn't let me. I thought he had to understand I was desperate, that I had no choice. It was only years later I understood the problem wasn't the money, it was the lie. David was very hurt, Jessica admitted. I know, and I was hurt too. I thought he had to trust me unconditionally just because we were brothers. And now? How do you feel about it now? Michael was silent for a long time. Now I understand that trust is built with actions, not blood, and that I broke the trust it took a lifetime to build. But do you think it can be rebuilt? I don't know. I hope so. But I understand if David decides it can't. Jessica looked through the porch window and saw Ethan playing by himself in the living room, building something with his blocks. Michael, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Did you ever try to hurt yourself in these 5 years? Michael looked her in the eyes before answering. I thought about it. More than once. Mostly in the first few months, when I lost the apartment and started sleeping on the street. Jessica felt her heart tighten. What stopped you? Ethan. How so? I kept thinking about him growing up, never knowing why his uncle disappeared. I kept imagining him asking David where I was, and David not knowing what to say. I couldn't do that to you. Michael, I know it might sound strange, but you saved me without even knowing it. The idea that Ethan might miss me, that David might sometimes think of me, that kept me alive. They were silent for a few minutes, watching the street activity. Jessica, can I ask you something? Of course. Is David happy? Truly? Jessica thought about the question. Most of the time, yes. He loves his work. He loves being a father. Our marriage is good. But there's a sadness in him that never completely went away. Because of me? I think so. He doesn't talk about it much, but I know he feels an emptiness. Like a part of him is missing. Michael closed his eyes. I feel that too. It's as if half of me stayed in our childhood when we were just two brothers protecting each other from everything. You can have that again, Jessica said softly. You think so? I think it's worth trying. At 5:30, Jessica started getting nervous. David would arrive in half an hour, and she still didn't know exactly how to approach the situation. Ethan was helping Michael organize the old backpack, separating what should be thrown away and what was important to keep. Uncle Michael, why do you carry this little stone? The boy asked, showing a small, smooth stone. Because it was the first thing your father gave me. When I was 5 and he was 7, we found this stone in the river near our grandmother's house. David said it was a magic stone that protected whoever carried it. And did it protect? I think so. I'm here, aren't I? Ethan smiled and returned the little stone to Michael. You have to show this to Dad. He'll be happy to know you kept it. At 6 o'clock sharp, they heard the key in the lock. Jessica felt her stomach churn. Ethan, Jessica, I'm home. David's voice echoed through the apartment. Ethan jumped off the couch and ran toward the door. Dad, we have a surprise for you. Jessica saw Michael turn pale. She stood up and walked toward the hallway, intercepting David before he could see Michael. Hi, honey, she said, kissing him quickly. How was your day? Busy. You said you needed to talk to me about something important. What was it? David asked, starting to loosen his tie. Dad, you have to sit on the couch, Ethan said, pulling his father's hand. Ethan, let me at least take off my jacket. David laughed. Jessica looked toward the living room and saw that Michael had stood up, but was partially hidden behind the armchair. David, I need you to listen to me before reacting, okay? She said. Jessica, you're scaring me. What happened? Nothing bad happened. On the contrary, she said, taking a deep breath. I found someone today. Who? Ethan couldn't contain himself any longer. Dad! Uncle Michael is back! He shouted, running toward the living room. Jessica saw David's face completely change. First confusion, then shock, then she didn't know how to describe his expression. What did you say? David asked quietly. Uncle Michael is here, Dad. Mom brought him home. David looked at Jessica, then toward the living room where Ethan had run. He began walking slowly in that direction. When he saw Michael, he stopped completely. The two brothers looked at each other for a long moment. saying nothing. Jessica could hear her own heart beating. "Michael?" David said finally, his voice almost inaudible. "Hi, David," Michael replied, equally quiet. "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out." Now continuing, David took a few steps toward his brother, then stopped again. Where were you?" he asked. "In Chicago." "I was always in Chicago," Michael replied. "But I looked for you. I looked everywhere." "I know. I hid. Why?" Michael looked at Jessica and then at Ethan, who was watching everything intently. "Because I was ashamed. Because I had lied to you and lost everything. Because I didn't know how to come back and face what I had done." David moved a little closer. "Michael, do you know how many nights I stayed awake wondering if you were okay, if you were alive?" "I know, and I'm sorry for that. I was a coward." "You were stupid," David said, but there was no anger in his voice. "Very stupid." "I was." "You should have come back. You should have talked to me." "I should have." "Dad, are you going to hug or are you going to stand there talking like robots?" Ethan asked, making both brothers laugh nervously. David looked at his son, then at Michael. Are you okay?" "I am now, but I wasn't for a long time." "What happened? After you left, what happened?" Michael told everything. The partner's betrayal, losing the apartment, the years on the street, the temporary jobs, the hardships. David listened to everything in silence with an expression that mixed pain, anger, and sadness. "5 years, David said when Michael finished. 5 years you suffered alone, when you could have come home." "I didn't think you would want me back," Michael admitted. "You idiot," David said, but this time the word came with tears. "How could you think that? You're my brother." "Even after everything I did?" "Michael, you lied about money. You didn't kill anyone. Money we can get back." A brother is the only one we have." Michael was crying now too. "David, I'm so sorry. For everything. For the lie. For disappearing. For wasting 5 years." "I'm sorry too," David said. "For being too proud to really look for you. For letting our pride ruin our family." Ethan, who had watched the whole conversation, approached the two men. "Now you hug," he said, as if giving an order. David looked at Michael and opened his arms. Michael hesitated for just a second before stepping closer. The two brothers' hug was long and full of emotion. Jessica, watching from the living room entrance, felt tears streaming down her face. "I missed you every day," David whispered to Michael. "I missed you too," Michael replied. When they separated, both were crying and smiling at the same time. "Daddy, can Uncle Michael stay forever now?" Ethan asked. David looked at Jessica, as if asking for permission. "Of course he can," she said. "This is his home too." "Michael, do you want to stay?" David asked. Are you sure? After everything?" "Michael, I spent 5 years wondering where you were. I won't spend one more day not knowing you're safe." Michael looked around the room at the photos on the shelf, at Ethan grinning from ear to ear, at Jessica, who had made this reunion possible. "Yes," he said, "I want to stay." "Yay!" Ethan shouted again, jumping on the sofa. "Ethan, how many times do I have to tell you not to shout?" Jessica said, but she was laughing. "Sorry, Mom, but today is a special day. Special days can have happy shouts." David sat on the sofa, still processing everything that had happened. "Jessica, how did you find him?" he asked. Jessica told the whole story, from the moment Ethan recognized Michael on the street to the decision to bring him home. "You did the right thing," David said when she finished. "Thank you for not giving up on him." "I didn't give up because Ethan didn't give up," she replied. "Your son has a wisdom that we adults lost somewhere." "Uncle Michael," Ethan said, approaching him, "do you still remember how to make paper airplanes?" "Of course I remember," Michael smiled. "And will you still teach me chess?" "I will, I promise. A real promise this time." Michael looked at David before answering. "A real promise. I won't break promises anymore." That night, after Ethan went to sleep, The three adults stayed up talking in the living room until late. Michael shared more details about the years he spent away, and David talked about how hard it had been to explain to his son why his uncle had disappeared. "I always said you had traveled far away," David admitted. "I couldn't tell him you had vanished. It felt too final." "Maybe a part of you knew I would come back," Michael said. "Maybe. Or maybe I just couldn't accept that I had lost my brother forever." Jessica watched the two talking and noticed how they were reconnecting. There was an ease between them that 5 years of separation hadn't managed to erase completely. "Michael, tomorrow we'll start taking care of practical matters," David said. "Documents, bank account, cell phone, and we'll look for work for you." "David, I don't want to be a burden to you." "You're not a burden, you're family, and family helps each other." "But I want to contribute. I want to pay my share of things." "You will pay. When you get a job. Until then, you stay here and help us with Ethan. With the house, with whatever we need," Jessica said. "Are you sure about this?" "Michael," David said seriously, "I spent 5 years wondering if you were alive. Now that I know you are, and that you're here, I won't let you out of my sight so soon." In the following days, the household routine changed completely. Michael slept in the guest room, but spent most of his time in the living room or kitchen, talking with Jessica while she worked from home or playing with Ethan. The boy was overjoyed. He finally had someone to play video games with him to help him with his math homework. Michael was always good with numbers, and to listen to his stories about school. "Uncle Michael, are you coming to my theater performance?" Ethan asked during Thursday's breakfast. "Of course, when is it?" "Next Friday. I'm going to be a pirate." "A pirate? How cool. Have you memorized your lines yet?" "Almost all of them. Can you help me practice?" "Yes, I can." Jessica watched those interactions and was moved. Michael was clearly making an effort to make up for lost time with his nephew, and Ethan soaked up all that attention like a sponge. David was different too, lighter, happier. Sometimes Jessica caught him looking at Michael with an expression of relief, as if he still couldn't believe his brother had returned. On Wednesday, Michael got a job interview at an accounting firm. Jessica lent him one of David's ties, and they spent the whole morning helping Michael get ready. "You'll do well," David said, adjusting his brother's tie. "You were always good with numbers and with people." "I'm nervous. Okay, it's been 5 years since my last formal job interview." "Take a deep breath, be yourself, and remember you have a lot to offer," Jessica encouraged. Michael returned from the interview with a smile on his face. "So?" Ethan asked, before he even took off his jacket. "They'll give me an answer by tomorrow," Michael said. "But do you think you got it?" David asked. "I think so. The manager seemed interested when I explained my previous experience, and when I said I was starting my life over, he said he admires people who don't give up." "See, I told you you'd get it," Ethan celebrated. On Thursday, the phone rang at 2 in the afternoon. Michael answered. "Hello?" he said, and Jessica saw his face light up. "Really? Thank you so much. Yes, I can start on Monday. Thank you so much." When he hung up, he was beaming. "I got it. I got the job." "Yay!" Ethan shouted, running to hug his uncle. Jessica felt tears of happiness in her eyes. Michael was truly rebuilding his life. "David is going to be so happy," she said. "He already is," Michael replied, pointing to the door. David had come home from work early and was standing in the entrance to the living room, smiling. "Congratulations, brother," he said, approaching to hug Michael. "I knew you could do it." "Now you can buy new clothes," Ethan said excitedly. "Yes, I can, and I can pay my share of the household bills." "Michael, you don't need to rush," Jessica said. "Yes, I do. I want to contribute. I want to be a real part of this family, not just a guest." That night, they celebrated with pizza and soda. Ethan insisted on choosing the flavors, and Michael insisted on paying. "This is the first money I've spent on you in 5 years," he said. "Let me have this pleasure." "Uncle Michael, when you get your first paycheck, can we buy a new game to play together?" Ethan asked. "We can." "What game do you want?" "That castle building one." "Then we can build a castle just like the one we made out of sand at the beach." Michael looked at David and Jessica. "Do you remember that day at the beach? How could I forget? You spent 5 hours building that fortress. Jessica laughed. Ethan didn't even want to stop for lunch. It was one of the best days of my life, Michael said softly. Mine too, Ethan agreed. That's why I knew you'd come back. People who build sandcastles with me don't disappear forever. Michael felt his eyes well up again. You're right, Ethan. People who build sandcastles don't disappear forever. Over the weekend, Michael suggested a family outing. Can we go to the park? He asked. It's been years since I've been to the park. Good idea, Ethan approved immediately. We can have a picnic. And play soccer, David added. Do you still play soccer? Michael asked his brother. Now and then. You? Not for a long time, but I think I still remember. Jessica prepared sandwiches and fruit, and they went to Millennium Park. It was a sunny Saturday, and the park was full of families. Ethan ran ahead, exploring the playgrounds, while the adults walked more slowly. You know what's funny? David said to Michael. I brought Ethan here many times over the years, and I always found myself thinking about how it would be if you were with us. Really? Really? Especially on his first birthday that you missed. I looked around and thought, Michael should be here. I wish I had been, Michael said. I missed a lot, huh? You did, but you won't miss anything else, and we'll make new memories to make up for it. They found a nice spot on the grass and spread out the blanket Jessica had brought. Ethan came running back, sweaty and happy. Uncle Michael, come play ball with me. Let's all play, David suggested. It was a perfect afternoon. They played soccer, had a picnic. Ethan showed Michael how much better he was at skateboarding, and Michael taught the boy how to make paper boats to sail on the lake. Uncle Michael, can you teach me how to fish for real? Ethan asked as they watched the boat sail. Of course. Your dad and I used to fish when we were kids. At Grandma's house, in the country, David added. Michael always caught more than I did. That's a lie. You were the one who always caught more. Can you take me there, to Grandma's house? Ethan asked. Michael and David looked at each other. The house was sold a few years ago, Ethan, David explained, when Grandma passed away. But we can go fishing somewhere else, Michael suggested. There are plenty of nice places near Chicago. Really? When can we go? When I get my first paycheck. How about that? Michael said. Then I can pay for a little inn for us to stay at for the weekend. Promise? Michael looked at David, who nodded, smiling. Promise? When they got home in the late afternoon, everyone was tired but happy. Ethan fell asleep in the car, and David had to carry him to his room. It was a perfect day, Jessica said as they were getting ready for bed. It was, Michael agreed. Thank you for giving me this second chance. Michael, stop thanking us, your family, she said. I know, but it's hard to believe all of this is real. That I'm really here, that you've all forgiven me, that I have a new job, that I'll get to watch Ethan grow up. It's all real and it's forever, David said, leaving his son's room. We won't let you drift away again. And I won't want to drift away. I've learned that running from problems only creates bigger ones. On Monday, Michael started his new job. He left the house in a suit and tie, carrying a briefcase borrowed from David and a lunch Jessica had packed. Good luck on your first day, Ethan shouted from the window as Michael left. The job went better than Michael expected. His co-workers were welcoming, and he discovered that despite the years away, he still remembered everything about accounting. How was it? Jessica asked when he got home. Great. My supervisor said I adapted very quickly, and they've already given me some clients to handle. That's wonderful, she said. Ethan is waiting for you to help him with his math homework. Where is he? In his room, pretending to do homework, but probably playing on his tablet. Michael laughed and went to find his nephew. Ethan, where's that homework? Uncle Michael. The boy came running. How was your first day of work? Really good. And how was your day at school? Cool. The teacher said whoever did all their homework correctly this week could bring a family member to tell a story on Friday. How fun. Who are you going to bring? You, if you want to come, Ethan said shyly. Michael felt his heart grow warm. Of course I want to come. What story do you want me to tell? The story of when you and Dad were little and built pillow forts. That is a good story. I'll definitely tell that one. On Friday, Michael went to Ethan's school for the first time. The boy was proud, introducing his uncle to all his classmates and his teacher. "This is my teacher, Ms. Johnson," Ethan said. "Ms. Johnson, this is my uncle Michael." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Michael. Ethan has talked about you so much this week," the teacher said. "I hope it was good things," Michael laughed. "Only good things. He said you taught him how to make paper boats and that you're going fishing together." "We sure are, and he's going to teach me some things too." "Like what, Uncle Michael?" "You're going to teach me how to be an uncle. It's been a long time since I've practiced." The story Michael told the class was a big success. The children laughed a lot when he described how he and David used to build elaborate forts in the living room and how their mother always complained about the mess. "Your uncle is cool," a little girl told Ethan on the way out. "I know. He's the best uncle in the world," Ethan replied proudly. That night during dinner, Ethan wouldn't stop talking about how cool it was to have Michael at school. "All my friends liked your story, Uncle Michael. I'm glad. Maybe I can come back another time and tell some other stories." "Really? You know other stories?" "I know lots of them. Stories from when your dad and I were little. Stories our grandfather used to tell us." "Tell one now," Ethan begged. Michael looked at David. "Do you remember the story about the buried treasure that Grandpa William used to tell?" David smiled. "How could I forget? We spent months digging holes in the backyard looking for that treasure." "What story is this?" Jessica asked. "Our grandfather always said there was a treasure buried in his backyard," Michael began. "He'd draw fake maps and hide clues around the house. David and I would spend hours searching." "And did you find the treasure?" Ethan asked, fascinated. "We did. On the last day of our vacation, just as we were about to leave, Grandpa found the treasure buried under the mango tree." "And what was in the treasure?" "Chocolates, some spare change, and a letter he'd written saying the real treasure was the moments we spent together searching," David completed. "Oh, how sweet," Jessica said. "Uncle Michael, can you make a treasure map for me?" Ethan asked excitedly. "I can. How about we do a treasure hunt next Saturday?" "Yees!" Ethan shouted. "Ethan," Jessica and David said together. "Sorry, but I just get really excited about cool things," he explained. Michael laughed. "I understand. I get excited about cool things too." The following Saturday, Michael organized an elaborate treasure hunt around the apartment. He hid clues in various places, drew a map, and even created riddles for Ethan to solve. Jessica and David helped, pretending they were also looking for the treasure. It was a morning full of fun and laughter. The final treasure was hidden on the balcony, a small box with some candies, a toy car that Michael had bought with his first paycheck, and a letter. "You can read the letter out loud, Ethan," Michael said. The boy opened the envelope and read, with some difficulty, "To Ethan, the best nephew in the world. The real treasure isn't the things we find, but the people we find who help us be happy. Thank you for helping me find my family again. With love, Uncle Michael." Ethan finished reading and ran to hug Michael. "Uncle Michael, this is the most beautiful letter I've ever received in my life. And this is the best hug I've ever received in my life," Michael replied, hugging him back tightly. Jessica watched the scene and thought about how much life had changed in the last few weeks. Michael was no longer the lost and desperate man she had found on the street. He was becoming the person he always was again, caring, creative, dedicated to his family. "Uncle Michael," Ethan said when they separated, "can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "You're never going to leave again?" Michael looked at David and Jessica before answering. "Never again, Ethan, I promise. This is my home now. You are my family, and I've learned that family is where we belong." "A real promise. A real promise." "Great, because I was already planning our next treasure hunt." Everyone laughed. "What's the plan?" David asked. "It's a secret for now, but it's going to be epic," Ethan said, using a word he'd learned at school. That night, after Ethan went to sleep, the three adults stayed talking in the living room. as had become their habit. "Michael, how are you feeling?" Jessica asked. "I mean, about all of this. The change must be huge." "It is huge, but it's good. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and for a second I forget where I am. Then I remember I'm home, with you, and I'm happy again." "You know this is really your home, right?" David said. "It's not just temporary." "I know, and I also know I'm going to work very hard to deserve to be here." "Michael, you don't need to deserve it. You already deserve it for being who you are," Jessica said. "Thank you. You saved my life, literally." "We didn't save you. Ethan saved you," David corrected. "If it weren't for his insistence, you might still be on the street." "That's true. That boy has a wisdom I don't understand where it comes from." "From Grandma Margaret," Jessica said. "She always said he had an old soul." "Mom was always good at seeing those things in people," David agreed. "She would have been happy to see us together again," Michael said softly. "I'm sure she is happy," David replied. "Wherever she is." 3 months later, Michael had settled completely into the family's routine. He contributed to the household expenses, helped with the chores, and had become an integral part of Ethan's life. The boy had completely adjusted to his uncle's presence. Michael picked him up from school twice a week, helped him with homework, and created a tradition of telling bedtime stories on Friday nights. "Uncle Michael, can you tell that story about Dad and the snake again?" Ethan asked one Friday evening. "Again? I've told that story 3 times already." "But I like it, and I want to make sure I remember it just right to tell my own children someday." Michael smiled. The idea that Ethan was thinking about passing those stories down to future generations moved him deeply. "All right, but this time I'll add some details I haven't told before." "What details?" "You'll see." The snake story was one of his favorites. It told about the day when David, at 10 years old, found a snake in the backyard, and instead of running, decided he would capture it to show his friends. Michael, 2 years younger, had tried to convince his brother not to mess with the snake, but David was determined. "Your father was always stubborn," Michael said. "Once he made up his mind about something, there was no changing it." "Just like now," Ethan laughed. "Exactly like now." So he took a long stick and tried to push the snake into a bucket. And then the snake got angry and came after him. Your dad ran so fast he tripped over his own feet and fell face first into the dirt. And you? What did you do? Me? I did the only sensible thing. I ran to the house screaming, "Moom!" Ethan always laughed the hardest at this part. "And what did Grandma do?" "She came running with a broom, saw your dad on the ground with dirt on his face and the snake long gone and said, 'David Joseph, how many times do I have to tell you not to mess with animals that could be dangerous?'" "Did she scold him?" "She sure did. And your dad was grounded for a week. No television, no bicycle, nothing." "And you?" "I was grounded too. Your grandmother said an older brother has to look out for his younger brother, even when the younger brother is being foolish." "But Dad was older?" "He was. But that day, I was the one who acted older. I was the one who tried to be sensible." "Uncle Michael, did you always look after Dad?" Michael thought about the question. "Not always. Sometimes he looked after me. That's how it is with brothers. Sometimes one looks after the other. Sometimes they look after each other." "And now? Do you look after each other now?" "We do now, and we always will." "Promise?" "Promise." One day during lunch, Michael made an announcement. "Everyone, I want to talk to you about something." "What is it?" Jessica asked. "I was thinking, it's been 4 months since I got here. I'm settled in my job. I'm contributing to the expenses. Maybe it's time I started looking for my own apartment." The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan stopped eating and looked at Michael with a frightened expression. "Why?" the boy asked. "Because you've already done so much for me. I can't take advantage of your kindness forever." "Michael," David said seriously, "do you think you're taking advantage of our kindness? It's not that, it's just, you have your own lives. I don't want to be in the way." "Uncle Michael, you're not in the way. You're part of the family," Ethan protested. "Ethan is right," Jessica agreed. "Michael, you're not a bother at all. On the contrary, you've brought so much joy to this house. But I need to have my independence too. David was thoughtful for a moment. Michael, can I suggest something? Of course. How about we look for an apartment in this same building, or at least in the same neighborhood? That way you have your independence, but you're still close by. Michael seemed surprised by the suggestion. You would like that? I would like that very much. That way Ethan can come over to your place whenever he wants. You can come here for dinner anytime you like, and we'll still be a family, just with 2 addresses. Uncle Michael, please, Ethan begged. At least stay here in the building? Michael looked at all of them and felt his heart warm. All right, let's look for an apartment here in the building, or at least on this street. Woo-hoo! Ethan shouted, and this time no one scolded him. In the following weeks, they looked for apartments in the area. They ended up finding a small 1-bedroom apartment in the same building 3 floors up. It's perfect, Michael said when they visited the apartment. Small, but it has everything I need. And it's super close, Ethan celebrated. I can take the elevator up and visit you. Yes, you can, when your parents allow it. They will. Right, Mom? Right, Dad? We'll see, Jessica laughed. Michael rented the apartment and began furnishing it little by little. Ethan insisted on helping to choose some things, especially the kitchen items. Uncle Michael, you need fun plates. These white plates are so boring, the boy said when they went to buy household items. What kind of plates do you think I should buy? The ones with drawings. Look, these here have fish. Then when you eat, you can pretend you're eating under the sea. Michael laughed and bought the plates with fish designs. Now you need glasses that match, Ethan continued. By the end of the afternoon, Michael had bought practically all the dishes based on his nephew's suggestions. His apartment ended up with a much more colorful and cheerful decoration than he had originally planned. Ethan has an interesting taste for decoration, Jessica commented when Michael showed the purchases. He does, and I like it. It makes the apartment seem more alive. Just like you, David said. You also seem more alive now. Michael moved into the new apartment at the beginning of the 6th month. It was a strange move because he wasn't really moving away from the family. It was more like he was expanding the concept of home. Uncle Michael, can I be the first official visitor to your apartment? Ethan asked. Of course. How about all of you come for dinner tomorrow? I'll cook. You know how to cook? Jessica asked, surprised. I learned a few things over all these years. It's nothing fancy, but it's edible. The next day, they went up to Michael's apartment. Ethan was excited, exploring every corner and praising every detail. Uncle Michael, your sofa is so comfortable, and look how cool the view from your window is. You can see the park. That's why I chose this apartment. The view. And the plates look beautiful here on the shelf. Michael had prepared spaghetti with homemade tomato sauce, and he was nervous. I hope you like it. It's been a while since I've cooked for other people. It's delicious, Jessica said after tasting it. Where did you learn to make this sauce? From an Italian lady who lived in the boarding house where I stayed about 2 years ago. Mrs. Moretti. She taught me some recipes in exchange for me helping her with her bookkeeping. Are there more stories from those years that you haven't told? David asked. Many. Not all of them are sad. I met interesting people, learned new things. It wasn't all suffering. Tell us some, Ethan requested. Michael told them about Mrs. Moretti, who cooked for all the residents of the boarding house and had a fascinating story about how she came from Italy to the US in the 1960s. He told them about old George, a 70-year-old man who also lived in the boarding house and knew how to play the guitar and who taught him a few songs. You learned to play the guitar? Ethan asked excitedly. A few simple songs. Nothing too elaborate. Do you have a guitar? No. I never had the money to buy one. David and Jessica looked at each other, and Jessica gave that smile that meant she had just had an idea. After dinner, they stayed talking in Michael's apartment until late. It was strange but nice to be there. It seemed like the family had expanded to 2 apartments, but it was still one family. Uncle Michael, now that you have your own place, you can get a dog, Ethan said suddenly. A dog? Why do you say that? Because every home needs a dog. It makes it happier. Ethan, not every home needs a dog, Jessica said. Dogs are a lot of work, but they're fun and they're good company. Michael considered the idea. Actually, I've always wanted a dog. When we were kids, we were always asking Mom for one. And she never let us, David chimed in. She said she already had her hands full raising two mischievous boys. She was right, Jessica laughed. Uncle Michael, you should adopt a street dog, Ethan suggested. That way you help a dog in need just like Mom helped you. The comparison made everyone laugh, but it also made Michael think, you know, that's a good idea. Once I'm a bit more settled, maybe I will adopt a dog. Really? Can I help pick one out? Of course you can. You'll be the dog's godfather. What's a dog godfather? It's a special person who helps take care of and train the dog. Cool. I'm going to be the best dog godfather in the world. 2 weeks later, for Michael's birthday, the family prepared a surprise. When he got home from work, he found everyone in his apartment with a new guitar. Happy birthday, they all shouted as he opened the door. Michael was speechless when he saw the guitar. You bought me a guitar? We did, Ethan said, running to hug him. Now you can play music. Ethan picked it out, Jessica explained. We went to the music store and he tried out several guitars to see which one had the nicest sound. Michael picked up the guitar carefully as if it was something very fragile. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, just play a song, Ethan pleaded. Michael sat on the couch and began to play a simple song that old George had taught him. It was an old romantic tune and his voice was a little rusty, but the emotion was palpable. When he finished, everyone was moved. Uncle Michael, you sing so well, Ethan said. Can you teach me? I sure can. We can play serenades for your mother. Good idea, the boy laughed. Boy. That night, Michael played the guitar late into the night. It was as if the music brought back a part of him that had been asleep during the difficult years. Thank you, he said, as everyone was leaving. This was the best birthday I've had in many years. It's the first birthday you've spent with us in 5 years, David said, and I hope it's the first of many. It will be, Michael promised. 6 months after Michael moved into his own apartment, the family's routine was completely established. Michael had dinner with them at least 3 times a week. He was always present for Ethan's important events, and weekends were always family time. Ethan had completely adjusted to having his uncle living in the same building. Sometimes he went up to do his homework in Michael's apartment, sometimes just to talk. Uncle Michael, can I ask you a question? The boy said one Saturday afternoon as they were organizing the clothes Michael had bought. Sure. Are you happy now? Michael stopped folding the shirt and looked at Ethan. Very happy. Why? Because sometimes you get that sad look in your eyes, like when I found you on the street. Michael sat on the bed next to his nephew. Ethan, sometimes people feel sad even when they're happy. It's like a scar on the soul. A scar on the soul? What's that? Remember when you fell off your bike and hurt your knee? It left a little mark, didn't it? It did. But your knee doesn't hurt anymore, right? No. A scar on the soul is the same. Sometimes I get sad remembering the years I wasted away from you all, but the sadness doesn't hurt anymore. It's just a memory. I get it. Like when I get sad thinking about Grandma Margaret. I miss her, but it's not a hurting kind of miss. Exactly. You're very smart, Ethan. Daddy said I take after you. Your father said that? Yeah. He said you were always the smartest of the two. Michael smiled. Your father was always the smart one. I was the stubborn one. Like me? A little bit like you, but you use your stubbornness for good things, like when you stubbornly insisted I come back home. That's true? If I hadn't been stubborn, you'd still be on the streets. Exactly. Your stubbornness saved our family. Ethan was clearly proud of that idea. Uncle Michael, can you teach me that song you sang on your birthday? I can. Do you want to learn to play guitar too? I do. Then when I grow up, I can serenade my girlfriend. Michael laughed. You already have a girlfriend? Not yet, but I will. Emma from my class is really nice. Emma, tell me more about her. She's smart and funny, and she likes to build things just like me. Sounds like a good choice. Yeah, but don't tell Mom I talked about a girlfriend. She'll start making little jokes. Our secret, Michael promised. That night, during dinner at David and Jessica's house, Michael couldn't help but tell them about the conversation he had with Ethan. He said not to tell that he has a little girlfriend, Michael said, laughing. Michael, it was a secret. Jessica pretended to be indignant. Sorry, but it was just too cute. Ethan, you have a girlfriend? David asked his son, putting on a serious face. Dad, Uncle Michael wasn't supposed to tell, Ethan complained, turning red. Easy, son. There's nothing wrong with having a special little friend. What's her name? Emma. But she's not my girlfriend yet. We're just friends. Yet? Jessica asked, amused. Yeah, but when I learn to play guitar, I'm going to write a song for her. Good strategy, David took the chance to tease. That's how I won over your mother, playing guitar under her window. Really? Ethan asked excitedly. No. Jessica laughed. Your father doesn't even know how to play guitar. He won me over with his bad jokes. My jokes aren't bad, David protested. Yes, they are, Dad, Ethan agreed with his mom. Your jokes are really bad, but they're funny because they're so bad. Everyone laughed, including David. Okay, I admit my jokes aren't the best, but they worked on your mother. They worked because I thought you were cute trying to be funny, Jessica clarified. Michael watched this family dynamic and felt profoundly grateful to be a part of it. There were moments when he still couldn't believe it was all real, that he had actually come back home. What are you thinking about? David asked, noticing Michael was quiet. About how lucky we are, Michael answered. About how life can change completely from one day to the next. It's true, Jessica agreed. If someone had told me a year ago that Michael would be here today, having dinner with us, and planning to give Ethan guitar lessons, I wouldn't have believed it. Me neither, Michael admitted. A year ago, I thought I'd never see you all again, that I'd die alone on the streets, with no one even knowing where I was. Uncle Michael, don't say such sad things, Ethan pleaded. Sorry, Ethan, but sometimes it's important to remember where we came from, to appreciate where we've arrived. Like the scars on the soul? Exactly like the scars on the soul. A year after the reunion, the family decided to throw a party to celebrate. Michael suggested they have a picnic in the same park they went to on the first weekend after he came back. Let's make it just like that day, he suggested. Picnic, soccer, paper boats on the lake, good idea, Ethan approved. And now you can play guitar too, and you can help me sing. I practiced the song you taught me. I want to see if I remember everything. On the day of the party, they arrived at the park carrying several bags with food, Michael's guitar, a ball, and even a kite that Ethan had insisted on bringing. Uncle Michael, do you know how to fly a kite? The boy asked. Yes, I do. Your father and I were masters at flying kites when we were kids. It's true, David confirmed. We used to make giant kites and compete to see who could fly theirs the highest. Can I join the competition? Of course. It'll be you against me and your father, Michael said. That's not fair. There are two of you, and only one of me. Okay, then it'll be you and me against your father, Michael suggested. That's better. They spent the whole afternoon at the park. They flew kites, played soccer, had a picnic, and Michael played guitar while Ethan sang. Several other families stopped to listen to the music. You sing very well, a lady said when they finished a song. Thank you, Michael replied. We're celebrating a special anniversary. Whose anniversary? Our family's, Ethan answered seriously. It's been a year since my uncle came back home. The lady smiled, clearly touched by the answer. How beautiful. Family really is everything. When the lady walked away, Michael looked at Ethan with admiration. Ethan, you have a very beautiful way of explaining things. I learned from you. You always explain things in a way I understand. And you always understand things in a way that surprises me. Late in the afternoon, as they were packing up to leave, Ethan asked a question that took everyone by surprise. Uncle Michael, don't you want to have children? Michael stopped putting the guitar in its case. Why do you ask that? Because you're very good with kids. You would be a cool dad. Michael looked at David and Jessica, who were clearly curious to hear the answer. I would like to have children, yes, but I haven't found the right person to have children with yet, How will you know when you find the right person? I don't know, I think I'll feel it. Like Daddy felt with Mum? Probably. And what if you never find them? Michael thought about the question. If I never find them, it's okay, because I have you, and you're almost like a son to me. Ethan smiled from ear to ear. Really? Really? You're the most important person in my life after your father and your mother. You're also very important to me, Uncle Michael. You're the best uncle in the world. And you're the best nephew in the world. They hugged each other tightly, and Jessica felt tears in her eyes watching that scene. You two make me cry, she said. Are they tears of happiness? Ethan asked. They are tears of happiness. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story and where you're following from. If you have something to share with us, leave it in the comments with sincere words. Do you believe Jessica made the right decision by bringing Michael home? We would love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories.